All right, I'd like to welcome my guest for this hour. Criminal defense attorney David Bruno is with me, and federal executive clemency attorney Tammy Allison is with me as well. Great to see you both. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And Tammy, I'll start with you. I just want to get your assessment of the state's case thus far. Given the idea that I get it, I think the star of their case is going to be the medical examiner, talking about the injuries that don't line up with a hanging. But at the end of the day, so far, I want to get your assessment of the evidence that we've seen up to this point.
Thank you for having me, Michael. You know, the state is doing what they can with the evidence they have. I think they're doing a good job laying it out for the jury to connect the dots like we so often talk about, so that they can potentially find this default, which is the standard of proof here. However, I think that some of the evidence that we have seen so far is questionable, and I think the state is going to have to explain it away for the jury so that the jury does not feel like there is any doubt. The fact that we saw a letter or the note that he put on his door stating that he was out for a bike ride searching for her, that goes against, you know, the state's case, as well as some of the other evidence that was presented. The state is going to have to figure out a way to combat against that evidence that is not working out in their favor.
You know, David, that sticky note that she mentioned that was brought in by the state essentially to show, I mean, a lot of people here around here in the studio who thought that maybe that showed it was a bit staged, that he was trying to make people think that he was in fact searching for his wife, because we did hear testimony that he didn't participate in a lot of the searches. We heard about his odd behaviors. We heard about a lot of things. But again, you know, when we see these cases, one of the problems is, if you don't come up with some other explanation, this jury can often say, well, how else could it have happened? You must have done it. But they have another explanation. So is it going to be enough for the state, the evidence that they have thus far?
Wow, it's so early in the case, Michael, and this is going to be circumstantial. And these circumstantial type cases really depend on the mountain of evidence that the prosecutor builds up over the days. That note right there is questionable in my mind. Look, I'm a former homicide prosecutor. I've actually been on scene on a staged suicide or a staged accident before, and we were tricked. We were tricked for a very long period of time. We almost released the crime scene, and then we found the decedent's wet clothing in the trunk of the defendant's car. So these are very, very difficult things for investigators to piece together. And it's the ME. The ME is going to be critical because obviously she didn't die in the position that she was found in. And then one other point on this dog. I've also experienced a situation where we were looking for a fugitive, and the fugitive was in a field, and we had dogs in that same field that never found them. So it's imperfect. It's not a perfect science here with these dogs, these cadavers, these other types of techniques. It really depends on the credibility of the dog. And that, I kind of jiggle and laugh when I see that, because I've experienced the same situation where dogs missed something before.
Well, you know, the detective, he said he trusted the dogs. He said they do a good job. But I think this dog issue, Tammy, is going to be real important. The jury asked some questions about it. One of the questions they had was, if you carried a dead body or if you carried someone, would the dogs detect that on you? And the guy said, yes, it absolutely would. And they did not detect it on this defendant. And when you think about the theory that the state is putting forward, the fact that he would have killed her, and he would have had to have transported or dealt with her body to take her to the woods at some point, because there was nothing of her in the house, without those dogs finding it on him, I wonder if they're going to be able to support that theory.
You know what, Michael? I don't think they're going to be able to support that theory. And I think that the criminal defense attorneys, they probably were high-fiving themselves and writing all kinds of notes and eating cake and celebrating because of that testimony that came out, because of the fact that the jurors asked that very specific question, meaning that they're paying attention and they're taking that into consideration, that those dogs did not pick up that scent. And that scent of what would be a dead body is very crucial here in terms of the state's case. And in terms of a defense, that raises so much doubt where the jury could come back with that not guilty verdict.
Absolutely. And Dave, you know, I respect your experience with this dog situation. But again, when we look at it from the perspective of the jurors, who again asked a number of questions regarding those dogs, they're obviously taking it seriously, considering what those dogs did not find. How important do you think that evidence is going to be?
Yeah, it is important because it's the prosecutor's burden beyond a reasonable doubt. This individual is presumed innocent, and there's not a confession. There's not forensic evidence at the crime scene tying this individual to the scene, or the murder. Those are the two things that I want as a prosecutor. I want a confession. I want something from the defendant. I want the forensics. This is a circumstantial case. They got a body. They got inconsistent injuries, but they may be lacking to connect those dots because the dots are so important to connect on a circumstantial case.
Now, all that being said, Tammy, what we're seeing here is a very aggressive defense. And generally, when you have a case like this that's circumstantial, that seems to have a lot of holes, you kind of poke those holes, which they're doing a great job of doing on cross-examination. You point out the holes, and then you kind of sit back and let the evidence speak for itself if you don't think it's strong enough. But no, they're being very aggressive. As I said, on cross-examination, they also want to bring in evidence of the mental health of the victim in this case to suggest she was seeing a therapist and had suicidal thoughts and certainly was depressed about the death of her stepson. They also have a demonstration that's going to show that the hanging was absolutely possible from the branch, which looks like a branch that couldn't support a body, but in fact, it was shown to be able to support a body. What do you think about this aggressive approach by the defense?
You know, I think this aggressive approach demonstrates their zealous advocacy on behalf of their client. They are preserving the record for appeal just in case there is a guilty verdict. They're dotting every single I and crossing every single T, okay? Because what they don't want, number one, is to be accused of ineffective assistance of counsel, and that's something that happens often in criminal cases. Criminal defense attorneys get complaints of ineffective assistance of counsel. So they're going to zealously advocate on his behalf and bring any and everything up. Not only does that raise doubt for the jury to listen to, but it also protects them. And most importantly, with the legal standard, it preserves the record for any types of appeal.
Yeah, this one's going to be interesting. Again, I'm really waiting for the testimony of that medical examiner. I think that's going to be super, super important. All right, guys, stand by. We do have to take a quick break. When we come back, folks, an Ohio high school